Episode 11, The Emergency Board Meeting. Katherine Morrison arrived at Skyward Airlines headquarters at 4:47 a.m., 2 hours before the emergency board meeting that would determine whether she kept her job. The building was dark except for security lighting and a few scattered offices where other insomniacs were already working. She'd gotten maybe 90 minutes of sleep, her mind racing through scenarios and counter-arguments until she finally gave up and came in early. Miguel looked up from his security desk, surprise crossing his face. "Ms. Morrison, you're here even earlier than yesterday." "Couldn't sleep," Katherine admitted, signing in. "How's Maria doing with her studies?" "She's good, working on a science project about Mars rovers." Miguel's smile was genuine, the kind she'd learned to recognize during her undercover days. "Thank you for remembering." Katherine rode the elevator alone, watching the floors tick upward. In 9 hours, she'd either still be CEO of this company or she'd be clearing out her office. The coalition's practical reforms sat in her briefcase. $12 for meal allowances instead of 15, crew rest areas instead of hotel rooms, solutions that saved millions while still addressing worker needs. But would it be enough to convince a board that had already lost patience with her? Sarah was already at her desk when Katherine entered the executive suite, looking like she'd gotten even less sleep. "Coffee's brewing. I pulled the financial projections using the coalition's numbers. We're at $14.2 million in costs instead of $18 million with the same projected benefits. Net positive of $47 million instead of $43 million. You didn't sleep at all, did you?" 3 hours. Sarah handed her a thick folder. "This is everything on Pemberton's buried complaints. 3 years of documentation, 847 complaints total, all marked pending review and never actually reviewed. I cross-referenced with the employees who filed them. 67% left the company within 6 months. Another 23% were written up for unrelated performance issues within 3 months of filing." Katherine felt cold rage settle in her stomach. He didn't just ignore complaints. He retaliated. Systematically. And he was careful about it. Different managers doing the write-ups, different stated reasons, nothing that would trigger a pattern analysis. But when you look at it all together, Sarah's voice was tight with anger. He destroyed people's careers for speaking up. "This goes to the board today," Katherine said, "along with everything else." Her phone buzzed. "Coalition meeting at my place tonight, 7 p.m. Diana wants to go over implementation timeline. We're ready when you are." Katherine typed back, "I'll be there. One way or another, I'll be there." Because either she'd still be CEO and they'd start implementing reforms immediately, or she'd be unemployed and James would need to know which board members to target with union pressure. The boardroom filled slowly. Katherine arrived at 7:50 a.m. for the 8 a.m. meeting, claiming her seat at the head of the table. Patricia Hughes arrived next, giving Katherine a tight nod of support. Then Rodriguez and Kim, her other solid votes. Jennifer Walsh entered looking uncomfortable, followed by David Park and Christine Blackwood, the 3 swing voters Katherine needed to convince. Marcus Westfield swept in at 7:58 a.m. with Richard Pemberton at his side, both looking satisfied in a way that made Katherine's stomach clench. They'd spent the weekend working the phones, and from their expressions, they thought they had the votes. Gerald Blackstone and Robert Chen from the institutional shareholders took seats near Westfield. The remaining board members filed in, and Katherine did a quick count. 9 votes she was sure Westfield controlled. 3 she was sure were hers. 3 genuine swing voters. That left 2 she couldn't read, board members who'd been quiet during the last meeting, not committing either way. Westfield called the meeting to order at exactly 8 a.m. "Thank you all for coming on short notice. We're here because Ms. Morrison's deadline has been shortened to 10 days, and yet she continues to make the situation worse. The Wall Street Journal article this morning has cost us another 2% in stock value. Our shareholders are demanding action." "The leak to the Journal came from this board," Katherine said quietly. "Not from me." "The leak happened because you created a crisis," Westfield shot back. "You've spent the last 3 days meeting with unions, making promises you can't keep, and preparing for some kind of all-hands spectacle on Friday that will only raise expectations you can't meet. I can meet them, Katherine said. In fact, I have revised projections that show— We don't need revised projections, Pemberton interrupted. We need you to stop this fantasy that we can spend our way to profitability by coddling employees who are already overpaid compared to industry standards. Katherine opened her briefcase and began distributing folders. These projections aren't fantasies. They're based on real data from frontline employees who actually understand our operations. Meal allowances at $12 instead of $15, saving $3 million annually. Crew rest areas using existing FAA-required spaces instead of hotel rooms, saving another $2.1 million. Equipment replacement on a staged timeline instead of all at once, spreading costs over 3 years. Jennifer Walsh opened her folder, scanning the numbers. These costs are significantly lower than your original proposal. Because I listened to the people who actually do the work, Katherine said. They found ways to achieve the same goals for less money. Frontline employees understand efficiency better than any consultant we could hire because they live with our inefficiencies every day. David Park was studying the spreadsheets. Your projected revenue increase from improved customer satisfaction. How confident are you in these numbers? Very confident. Customer satisfaction dropped from 78% to 61% over 3 years, directly correlated with our staffing cuts. Industry data shows that every point of customer satisfaction improvement generates approximately $2.3 million in revenue through repeat business and positive word of mouth. We're projecting a 12-point improvement over 18 months, which is conservative given how far we've fallen. Industry data from where? Westfield demanded. MIT's airline industry study, published last year. Harvard Business Review's analysis of service recovery. Our own historical data before we started the cost-cutting initiatives. Katherine met his eyes. The data has always supported employee investment. We just chose to ignore it. Christine Blackwood leaned forward. What about the discrimination complaints? The class action lawsuit? Katherine took a breath. This was the moment. I'm glad you asked. She distributed a second folder, this one much thicker. This contains documentation of 847 employee complaints filed over the past 3 years, all of them marked pending review by our CFO. None of them actually reviewed. 67% of the employees who filed these complaints left the company within 6 months. Another 23% were written up for performance issues within 3 months of filing. The room went silent. Pemberton's face had gone pale. Richard? Westfield's voice was dangerous. What is this? These complaints were being evaluated for merit before. Pemberton was stammering, his usual confidence completely gone. They were buried, Katherine said flatly. Systematically buried, and the complainants systematically retaliated against. This isn't just bad HR practice. This is potentially criminal, and it's exactly the kind of institutional cover-up that will destroy us in court when the class action lawsuit goes to discovery. Patricia Hughes was reading through the documentation, her expression growing darker. Jesus Christ! Richard, you created a paper trail of retaliation. Any employment lawyer could prove pattern and practice with this. I was protecting the company from frivolous, Pemberton started. You were protecting yourself from accountability. Katherine cut him off. And in the process, you've exposed this company to massive legal liability. Every one of these complaints should have been investigated. Every one of these employees should have been protected. Instead, you punish them for speaking up. David Park was shaking his head slowly. This changes everything. If this comes out in discovery, it will come out, Katherine said. The only question is whether we get ahead of it by implementing real reforms and settling with the complainants, or whether we try to hide it and get destroyed in court. Westfield was staring at Pemberton with barely controlled fury. You told me the discrimination complaints were handled. They were. I evaluated them and you buried them, Jennifer Walsh said quietly, and now you've made us all complicit. Katherine pressed her advantage. This is what happens when we prioritize short-term cost savings over systemic integrity. We don't just harm employees, we create institutional rot that eventually destroys shareholder value. My reforms aren't just about being nice to workers. They're about rebuilding the institutional trust and operational excellence that made this airline profitable in the first place. Christine Blackwood closed her folder. I want to hear more about your implementation timeline. If we approve this, and that's still an if, how quickly can you show results? Immediate policy changes take effect within 48 hours, Katherine said. Meal allowance restoration, elimination of the upselling mandates, new safety reporting procedures. Staffing increases happen over 90 days as we complete hiring and training. Customer satisfaction improvements should be measurable within 60 days, significant within 6 months. And if the numbers don't materialize, Park asked, then I resign and you bring in someone else. Katherine met his eyes. But they won't have the coalition I've built. They won't have the trust of the unions. They won't have employees willing to work with management instead of against it. What I'm offering isn't just a financial plan. It's a cultural transformation that will take years to replicate if you throw it away now. Westfield leaned back in his chair. This is all very moving, Katherine, but you're still asking us to bet the company on your ability to make employees happy. That's not a business strategy. No, Katherine said. I'm asking you to bet on operational excellence, customer satisfaction, and legal risk mitigation. Employee satisfaction is the mechanism, not the goal. Happy employees provide better service, which creates happy customers, which generates revenue. It's not complicated. It's just not what we've been doing. Rodriguez spoke up for the first time. I want to hear from Richard about these buried complaints, because if Katherine is right about the legal exposure, we need to know exactly how bad it is. Pemberton looked trapped. The complaints were, most of them were minor issues. Personality conflicts, misunderstandings. I used my judgment to determine which ones warranted full investigation. And your judgment was that 847 complaints over 3 years, none of them warranted investigation? Patricia Hughes's voice was ice. That's not judgment, Richard. That's dereliction of duty. I was trying to prevent frivolous lawsuits from... You created the lawsuit, Katherine said. Every one of those buried complaints is evidence of a hostile work environment. Every retaliation is proof of institutional discrimination. You didn't protect the company. You gave the plaintiffs' lawyers everything they need to destroy us. The silence that followed was absolute. Katherine could see board members doing the calculation, weighing the legal exposure against the cost of her reforms, measuring the risk of staying the course against the risk of change. Finally, Jennifer Walsh spoke. I want to propose something. We give Katherine her 10 days, but with additional oversight. Weekly reports to the board, not just at the end. And we suspend Richard from his CFO duties pending an investigation into these buried complaints. Pemberton shot to his feet. You can't. I've been with this company for... Sit down, Richard. Westfield's voice was flat. Jennifer's right. You've exposed us to massive liability. Until we know the full extent, you're a risk we can't afford. Katherine felt something shift in the room. Westfield wasn't backing her reforms. He was protecting himself from Pemberton's disaster. But the effect was the same. Her primary antagonist was suddenly neutralized. I'll second Jennifer's proposal, Christine Blackwood said, with one addition. Katherine, you said you're doing an all-hands meeting Friday. I want to attend. I want to hear what you're telling employees. You're all welcome to attend, Katherine said immediately. In fact, I'd prefer it. Employees should see that the board is engaged and supportive. David Park nodded slowly. I can support that. Weekly reports, board oversight, and we see how the all-hands meeting goes. If employees respond positively, that's evidence your approach has merit. Westfield looked like he'd bitten into something sour, but he nodded. Fine, but Katherine, understand this. You're not off the hook. You're on an even shorter leash now. Any sign that this isn't working, any hint that you're making promises you can't keep, and we're done. Clear? Crystal clear, Katherine said. The vote was called. 9 in favor of continuing Katherine's reforms with oversight, 4 opposed. 2 abstentions, including Westfield, who clearly couldn't bring himself to support her, but also couldn't defend Pemberton's disaster. Katherine had won. Barely. And at the cost of making an enemy of her own CFO, who was now being investigated and would blame her for his downfall. But she'd won. By 7 p.m., Katherine was back in James Rivera's Queens apartment, surrounded by the coalition. She'd spent the day implementing immediate changes, drafting new policies, sending company-wide emails, scheduling meetings with department heads. Her hands were shaking from exhaustion and too much coffee, but she couldn't stop smiling. "The board approved it," she said. "Not enthusiastically, not unanimously, but they approved it. We start implementation immediately." Diana Reeves leaned forward. "What about Pemberton?" "Suspended pending investigation. He buried 847 employee complaints over 3 years and retaliated against the people who filed them. The board is terrified of the legal exposure." Elena Vasquez let out a low whistle. "Holy shit. You actually did it." "We did it," Katherine corrected. "Your cost-saving alternatives made the difference." The board couldn't argue with numbers that tight. Captain Raymond Chen was studying her carefully. "What about the all-hands meeting Friday?" "Some board members are coming." "3 of them. They want to see how employees respond." Katherine met his eyes, which means Friday isn't just about announcing the reforms. It's about proving to the board that employees are willing to give management another chance. "That's a big ask," Thomas Okonkwo said quietly. "A lot of people have been burned too many times to believe in corporate promises." "I know," Katherine said. "That's why I need your help. You're the ones employees trust. If you vouch for these reforms, if you tell people this is real, they'll listen." James Rivera had been quiet, watching the group dynamics. Now he spoke up. "We'll vouch for you, but Katherine, you need to understand what you're asking. We're putting our credibility on the line. If this falls apart, if the board reverses course or you get removed, we're the ones who told people to trust management. We're the ones who'll have to face them afterward." "I know," Katherine said. "And I'm asking anyway, because I can't do this without you. I need you to believe that I'm serious about this, that I'm not going to let the board shut this down, that I'm willing to lose my job fighting for these reforms if that's what it takes." The room was quiet. Then Diana Reeves nodded slowly. "Okay, we'll help you sell this to the employees, but if the board tries to reverse course, we're not going down quietly. We'll make so much noise they'll wish they'd never heard of Skyward Airlines." "Fair enough," Katherine said. Angela Martinez pulled out a laptop. "Then let's talk about Friday. What exactly are you planning to say?" They spent the next 3 hours crafting Katherine's message. Not a corporate speech full of buzzwords and empty promises, but a genuine explanation of what had gone wrong, why she was committed to fixing it, and what specific changes employees could expect. The coalition pushed back on every vague statement, every corporate hedge, until the message was clear and concrete. By 10 p.m., Katherine's voice was hoarse and her eyes were burning. But they had a plan. Friday's all-hands meeting would be different from any company meeting in Skyward's history. No PowerPoint presentations, no scripted Q&A, no corporate theater. Just Katherine, the coalition representatives, and a promise that this time, things would actually change. As she was leaving, James walked her to the door. "You did good today," he said quietly. "Taking down Pemberton, getting the board to back off, showing up here tonight instead of celebrating. You're earning people's trust." "I'm trying," Katherine said. "I know I have a long way to go." "Yeah, you do." James's smile was tired but genuine. "But you're moving in the right direction. Keep moving." Katherine drove back to Manhattan through light rain, her mind already racing ahead to tomorrow's implementation meetings. She had 8 days left to prove her reforms worked. 8 days to transform a company culture that had been toxic for years. 8 days to convince employees that management finally meant what it said. Her phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Pemberton cleaned out his office and left. Didn't say goodbye to anyone. Building security has his badge. Katherine felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. She'd made an enemy today, and Richard Pemberton wasn't the type to accept defeat quietly. He'd be working his network, talking to board members, building a case for his return and her removal. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, she'd survived another day. The reforms were moving forward. The coalition was working with her instead of against her. And for the first time since this all began, Katherine Morrison had more allies than enemies. It would have to be enough.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures. Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.